the entertainment industry, and advertising agency, marketing company, and when the web was starting to hit, the Francisco office of this innovation, so of kind of web media, Flash had just come out, all that kind of stuff, but I was still kind of hell-bent on using characters on the internet. I'll show you some of that. And also, like Rebecca said, I was at onlive.com, so during the kind of the 3D Vermal craze of all of us guys trying to do 3D avatars and communities, we were doing it in this kind of next step kind of way, which was actually using voice and making it very social. So I'll actually show that now. Because there's other people here other than us, I'm going to go right into some of the Traveler stuff because, hey, what do you know? Computers have been known to actually break at times. So if it's actually up now, why don't we do that? So just a little perspective there. And I have tons of slides, and I want to kind of go quick through some of them to give you a broader thing, so I might jump around a bit. So I'm going to talk about this Avatar Virtual World on Live Traveler. And what we tried to do there from a design perspective is we wanted to make community. So how do you make community? You do that with, we thought, the structural process of community is communication. It's the mechanism that organizes these social relationships. So when we're moving our bits around and our animation around, we want to do it in terms of communication. And one of our caveats was we want it to be very natural. And that's very different than some of these other kind of avatars that you, I bring up the idea of this leash, this identity leash. With full VR, you're kind of in the avatar, you really feel it. Well, there's other avatar systems where you kind of go out on the dance floor and the leash is a little bit longer. You don't feel like you're in it, you feel like you're kind of controlling it. And sure enough, it's got motion capture dance and you're hitting the keys. Well, one of the things about on live is you really kind of feel like you're in it, much more like a VR. So if we want to do that most natural form, how can we do that? Well, face-to-face communication seems to be the most natural way, what I'm almost doing right now, to do that. So for that, we went with voice, because not only do you get the explicit message, what I'm saying, just like you get an email, you get the implicit message. You could tell I have a New York background, and you could tell when someone's kind of nervous or happy, or what part of the country they're from, or they thought that was kind of inappropriate. All that will come through the voice. So we were very interested in that. And it's also very comfortable and natural. When people say, well, how do you use this thing? You go, well, you go up to people and talk. It doesn't have a lot of user interface to it. So, so what we're really going for is a sense of telepresence, that you're really here talking to these people. And in fact, so one of the things we've done is first person, you're in your body, you can't have a third person point of view, you got to walk around. So, and your line of sight is a very natural line of sight too. And sound is distance attenuated, which is just like happens in this room. As you go farther away, you don't hear me as loud. All that is to get kind of a cocktail party situation where you're gathered with a bunch of people, and we'll be there in a second. You can kind of hear people off in the distance. And obviously 3D navigation has a lot to do with it, because I literally have to walk over to people and say, hey, how you doing? They'll turn to look at me and say, we're in a conversation, get lost. And I have to take that long walk back and say, well, that didn't work out. So it's not a typical text chat. A lot of times text chat people they can't get their social yayas out kind of in the real world, so they kind of do it with some level of indirection. This obviously has indirection in it, and that you're not really in this virtual space, but you can get dissed just as bad here as anywhere else, and you kind of feel that. And that's great, that's what we were after. So let's go back. And sure enough, someone's been waiting for us this whole time, just kind of moving their head back and forth. And all of a sudden, so let me just note that person They got music on because this is like a kind of a garage cellar hangout place that people tend to meet and then go elsewhere to. Hey, Purple, I'm back. So I just control down on. Hey, can we? Oh yeah, that's great. Could you lower that a little bit? That was loud. Is that somebody just playing stuff?
Yeah, he's right. Yeah, he's right beside you. He's right beside you, but he's going to cool it now, I think.
So somebody's right beside me. I'll turn and look, and sure enough, there's Oz. Hey, Oz, how you doing? So there's a little funny feedback there.
How you doing there, Blue? How you doing?
Hey, we're getting feedback from somebody. So somebody's going to turn that off. Well, maybe that's from this very room. So can you guys talk a little bit about what it's like to be on live?
Home away from home. Log on to the computer for myself. I mean, I log on to the computer. First thing I do is check in here, and I sit at this little table and do what I need to do on the computer, like the office or something.
So what do we know? We know that she's from the South or Middle America. She's kind of a little genteel. I mean, you feel that in the voice a little bit. Probably a little nervous, not sure. I spring this on her all the time. She never knows is this. So that we're ahead, right? She doesn't know there's 2,000 people or, 20 people in the head. So.
You know Meister, right? Meister, do you know that?
So she's always introducing me. That's what she kind of does.
I sure do.
So I'll turn and look at Meister.
And
where is it?
Leave upside down.
Yeah. Hey there. So there's about 20 of us here. We're in the UCLA Design School. So we're literally at a table.
Oh, that's neat. Hi, everybody.
Okay. Why don't we all say very just quickly on three? Hi. 1, 2, 3.
Hi.
So she laughed. Yeah, I don't think they know what we're looking at yet because I just threw them in it. But so who made this space? Is this one of yours or somebody else's? So I'm going to pull back a little bit.
Yeah, that's one of mine.
It's one of mine. So you hear the modesty.
This room's really strange. I mean, everybody loves. I don't know if they love it or not. They say it's too dark and they complain about it, but it's like the. I don't know. I'd say it's the #1 hangout in Chandler right now. Maybe it's the.
Okay, now she's getting not as modest.
That they feel comfortable in, or it's just because the fans are here to talk to. Who knows? But it's been a very successful space.
Hey, do me a favor. I'm just going to pull back so I can show them the distance attenuation. You guys can talk if you want, and I'll be right back. But just keep talking for a sec. So, just looking around, who's there? And sure enough, this is. So that's this guy, Real Man, who's always a troublemaker. So note how low it got. Let me just kind of come in, because I could be in another group over here, right? Oops, did we just lose something? I just clicked on it. It was me. Yes, I stepped on the remote. Okay. So you could hear the three distinct voices, right? Let me come back again because I'm being rude. And that's one of the problems is I'm just as much there as I am here. I'm coming back around. There's these three people talking. They're kind of looking at me. This is a little uncomfortable. So let's see. More out of that speaker. Let's see. They're not talking as much. So now out of this speaker. So it's stereo down too, and they're going, Blue, what are you doing there? Sorry, I was just doing the technical thing of one speaker and the other speaker and pulling back and all that kind of stuff. So I know these guys for years, so I have to kind of, hey, how's it going?
Yeah,
kind of
that's why this program's special. Of course, it's special here.
It's so special. So I can do a show profile, and it tells me that this is Tears, and she's got a comment here, women and cats will do as they please, men and dogs need to relax and get used to the idea. So So a little bit about who she is. This guy's Oz over here.
So those guys going to design some traveler spaces or something like that for...
Okay, I should really be listening to them. I'm sorry, say that again?
So are those guys going to design some traveler spaces? Working in True Space and Max and Maya and all that stuff, or you just giving a tour of travel?
No, I'm just giving a tour. So, yeah, we're just kind of looking through this and some other things. With my Stanford class, they actually taught them how to make spaces.
I did some impulse shopping.
So that she literally came in as a lecturer from, I don't even know where I just say Middle America. I don't really know where she's from.
I did impulse shopping today and bought I bought onlinetraveler.com.
So is there any questions about this? Because I'm going to kind of go on. Maybe we can come back, but they might not be here. So, yeah. Yeah. So, so he's trying to cause a little trouble. So hold on one second. So that's what we look like right now, right? So we're all in a head, just like they are ahead. And sure enough, I have a neutral position, but I have happy, sad, angry, and surprised.
There we go. I'm not frozen anymore. I froze up.
Yeah, she's really, really quite good with what she can do. I have a whole nother talk about how she pretty much owns this world, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit, and how she really can spin her web in different ways, and how she's kind of expressing herself through the art of these worlds. And literally, they have strong relationships, some of them. So, that's great. That's a lead into some of the other stuff I'm going to talk about. This is really in the interactive character side. There's a couple of pulls. One of them is the entertainment space. This one is this chat community space. Community is important in some ways, but then there's this other marketing web bot space, which typically doesn't have a real person in it. It's an automated salesperson or helper, and I'm going to show one of those pretty soon. This is about the most social of this kind of space. Okay, so I've been. Yeah. Sometimes that means they're not there. They dance like that. So, but I'm going to pull back and note how they really everyone when I was at On Live, there was a bunch of artists and musicians and web people all trying to keep this community alive, and some of us were more geeky than others, and they like this and they like that. I would like good social circles. I felt like, okay, it's kind of working, that people are really thinking they're somewhere. And again, these people, the commercial side of this is so dead. It's like it's on its second startup that's about to go chapter 11. These guys are in like a bad Star Trek episode, which, they were kind of in this thing and they go, well, one day, and you want to go, everyone who made this program is gone, but they love it so much that they kind of stay in it. So it shows you that something is kind of working. So I'm going to go over and say goodbye to them. Does anybody have any questions for them?
I got the Diamond carbon light computer, so I don't know anything about Sound Blaster.
No, these are as regular folk as you can get. A lot of them are in isolated areas or have some free time.
Help me out getting it going, figuring out stuff cool, but yeah, mine's running perfect.
There is a Wanda Web comes on here sometimes.
I seen you way up there.
I don't think it's her. Hey guys. Hey, thanks for showing us stuff. I'm gonna show them a couple of other rooms, and I might be back a little bit later. But don't feel that you have to stay. But thanks for saying hello to all of us.
Bye. All right. I didn't hear Frank broke up a little bit.
Oh no, I just said I'm going to go on into some other spaces. But thanks for saying hello. We might come back a little bit later. I'll talk to you guys soon. So,
okay, bye. It's nice meeting everybody.
Y'all come back now. You hear, she's got that style to her. She's kind of the matron of the place.
I'm using the daggone microphone. I wish it would stop
Yeah, he's complaining about my yucky microphone. He's kind of like the headbanger of the group, if it's not too obvious. Okay, bye-bye. And there's about 100 or 200 people who come in here a lot.
See you later. See you later.
So, let this come back up. Okay, like I said, I'm going to fly around different places. So, getting back to, where this fits within things. So, we're talking about character design and interactive characters, mainly for some social interface use. Sometimes when people ask me, what do I do? In some circles I say, oh, I do social user interface, with embodied characters, would be one way to say it. So for Purple Tears and her gang, it's a very personal communication one. There's others. I talked about this idea of an identity leash, right? They are really their leash is very short. They're kind of in their avatars. When they turn their head, that's what they see. Obviously in games, the leash is a little bit more in multi-user games. You can have a third-person point of view and you're blowing people away and you surely don't, it's less one-to-one. This is like you're talking and, your mouth moving. It's very one-to-one. Like I sometimes call it binding the pair. The pair is me and my avatar as tight as they can be. And that's what we were after there. That doesn't always, you don't really need that for everything. So on this timeline here, where VR is like you're in this thing and surely it's completely one-to-one with your experience, I have on live pretty far down. I guess I have this as third, a point of view of a third party. And then I could say all the way down here, I guess, is almost email. Because in a way, well, it's not embodied. You do send it out there and it represents you and it comes back. Well, there's going to be a lot and typically when there's an internet character that doesn't have someone inside of it, when it has someone inside of it, represents someone real time, that's an avatar. When it's a bot, which is, unfortunately, none of the words have stuck yet, but sometimes they call them agents, social agents or whatever. So right now that your agent, can filter your mail and it gets info. Right now you can put on a spam filter, or imagine, just one step more than that you have kind of a real-time working agent who's seeing what's coming in. But because other people have agents too, you're going to start negotiating with other agents. I need to talk to Rebecca and ask for a favor. Rebecca's very busy. She's got like some significant filters on, but my agent's going to, try and convince her agent, no, this is important, and I'm going to try and sneak through. Yes. And one of the interesting, so there's a field here. I know it seems far removed from here. I'm kind of sliding off there. But I do want to mention, whether it's embodied or not, there will be these agents running around. And one of the interesting things, are the agents representing you? Are they going to be as nice as you? Well, your agent is not as nice as you. And these are like, this is bits. So, sure you have like a Jean-Luc Picard always calling things sentient beings, but I think most of what's out is just bits. I don't care. So is Rebecca's agent am I just going to lie? I just tell my agent, just lie. I don't really care how you get in the door, or does it represent me? And then you get into these reputation systems of that sure enough, just like real agents, you could kind of say, well, that's my agent, I'm sorry. But in this case, you kind of know that you program it a bit. So you create your agent and avatar and you send it out. Again, you're mindful how the controls, you could dance it, or way on the other side, you are your avatar.
So when you're saying agents, these are computer programs that are smart enough, they have enough intelligence where you can say, maybe you'll give them a list like, these are the most important people I want to get email from, but if I get an email from so-and-so, maybe put it further down in my stack, or I don't really need to respond right away, or
That's
tell
right.
me about this, but you can just throw that one away.
That's right. So there's just the, computer program filter thing, and we could all understand that today, but you could imagine put a social interface on it, and at that point, there's negotiation and all the things that actually your kind of Hollywood agent does. So I think that'll start coming into. So why would you want that? So I have like 2 quick slides on why maybe that's a direction it's going to go. For instance, Steve Jobs or, this Windows metaphor or desktop metaphor at Xerox PARC a long time ago. It's really hung on a little bit too long. So what really is the next big user interface pull? Well, one of the things we know we do is we have way too many clicks with email. It's if computers are going to be smart, I want a computer, give me my email, find the ones I want. I don't want to sit there and do it. So it's going to perform large tasks kind of more autonomously, because you're going to go, give me the best price, blah, blah, blah. When it does that, things like clarification are going to be coming in. So, in other words, you said, hey, Steve, sorry to bother you. You said to get the best price, but, last time we got really burned by best.com. Did you mean like the best price of a reasonable place or not? Sorry to bother you. Just tell me and I'm off again. And I think that's going to happen a lot. It has to happen if this large task that you're just saying the computer's got to do, it's got to come back and say, can you clarify a little bit? So the question is the best way to do that then with characters? Because if you're going to break in, and I say why, so let's see what the next slide says. Well, because I kind of really believe in the social communication paradigm, right? That we create these social exchanges where appropriate. And that's because what we're doing here, I always get a kick out of, in the information design thing, there's these Tufts books out there and other ones, but we know so little about conveying stuff, yet every one of us are experts on face-to-face communication, right? And we're experts, I'm a big evolutionary guy, we're experts because, back in caveman days, when you talk to someone and they said, oh no, the food's that way, I swear, you had to kind of believe them or not. And if it's us people who could read, when liars were lying and foes were being honest to make pacts, we kind of, so we have a lot of kind of neural programming in our brains for reading body language and we salesmen are just so great at this social context that might make a little bit more sense. Now, you don't want it for everything. You don't want to have a character like in between you and your Excel spreadsheet. You just want quick stuff. But when you do want kind of negotiation, brainstorming, your grandmom is Compaq isn't working and she wants to ask Compaq why, that's where these kind of embodied agents are going to show up and say, did you try the start button? So again, because we can leverage these, what I'm saying we're all experts in, this social communication. And again, salesmen have been knowing this for years. So when I was doing some of this more agent side, remember the traveler stuff is on the avatar side, I'm starting to read these awful salesman's books, and so is the guy in the research up at Microsoft. And we're talking about this idea of reciprocity, which is like a salesman sees you and goes, oh, have you eat my lunch? And there's this kind of idea, if he gives you something right away, you'll give back. Another great trick is, this social exchange trick is consistency, which is like, God, that Bush guy, I just don't like him, liberals unite. Yes, and you push them into their extreme, and then later on you can use that. Us liberals really like fast cars, don't you know? And you can, and what happens is, when a salesman kind of pushes you into some kind of consistency, you feel funny about backing down, even though you normally would say, that car's just a little too spiffy for me, So there's a lot of techniques, tricks for salesmen, but actually these are techniques also from a user interface. A great way to think about it, and this is some of the things, and this is kind of floating in what I did at Saatchi, which was kind of very marketing oriented, is you can have this whole thing on it. So what is a web page? A web page is text and graphics a lot. Yeah, we have some Flash and stuff, but so if you're going to say, try this, it's beta, it might not work, but we think it works, but we really want you to try it, but we have to put this legal thing in. That's a lot. I could also say, try it. It should work. That in that social exchange, just by the way I did that inflection, it was enough to say, I have some doubts, but I think you'll like it. So there is some real shortcuts as well too. So I mentioned some sort of compression here. So let me show you an example of a bot. And unfortunately, there's Seattle. Unfortunately, the bot that I wanted to show you that I did at Saatchi for Hewlett-Packard, I can't seem to get up here, but I have a different version. Do you have a question while I'm bringing it up?
Do you find as the leash gets shorter, as it gets closer to reality, do people
That is a great question, and in fact, the bane of my commercial research existence, in that it's just assumed with video conferencing, oh, you do voice, and that's great. I could feel that person now. If we could make it really look like that person, and they're all, I'm doing some work for Kodak and some others, and they're thinking, and I'm always saying, and especially when I do a lot of face stuff, they're like, well, can you just map, if you can map the CEO on a face, you're in. We're like he looks like in the morning, like he looks like at night, like he thinks he looks like, and that's not what it's about anyway. I get in another talk that Rebecca saw, I talk about, I'll do it with hand puppetry, me, someone else, thin wire, that's what the internet and interactive communication is about. So email goes over this wire, it gets compressed because it's thin, and when it gets to the other side, email, you always assume someone might be rude or have to put in a little icon to say smiley face in case they got it the wrong way. The compression isn't working. So making it look more and more realistic, doesn't really help with the compression algorithm. I think it's more like if you can get what somebody really feels inside is what you want. So Purple Tears, the person we were talking to, and I might try and slide a little bit into that talk, is not who she is at home. At home, she's Pam, she's a different person. And I actually claim that there's this idea of coming expression systems where we all express ourselves in different ways, like she's expressing herself on live. So I'll kind of slide into that more. But let me do the boring, dry, kind of robotic guys for Saatchi first. Yeah, you're talking to the wrong guy there. I'm just like video bad, so I'll just rail endlessly that video conferencing has just failed miserably. No one uses it. People have paid zillions of dollars. There's like more than one system in every corporate office. They bought one, they hated it. They bought another one, they hated it. I just don't think the life goes through the bits, personally. But I just came from animation and the life side, and I'm into graphics anyway. So I claim that the very low poly, one of the things I always say is movement over form, which is a hard thing for 3D people to kind of keep remembering, is they simply want to make this really big room. So I claim that Purple Tears can flirt with you in 300 polygons because she's just so good at using that. Where if she was doing that with video, the best she can do is what she's really doing. It doesn't come across very well. It gets all choppy. Everyone says with video, if you know the person, you can feel the stuff. If you don't, you're not even getting the gestures, and that's terrible to me because I think almost with a line drawing, you can get at least beginning gestures. People want to get deeper than that. So I have to explain this. This is Microsoft Agent. It's a character that comes in and yaks. We did this for the HP Palm Top site, so it was on the web, really worked, got some good results, did it at Saatchi. HP was her client. He basically was a social agent, and he pointed to the product, and you could ask him some questions. I don't have that. What I have is this other experiment that I'm doing with someone else, which is showing kids what prehistoric fish were like. But you'll still see that there's a web and then an interactor with it. And it actually, since I ripped off most of the code from the agent guy, it's going to be similar. So let's hope this works. That's how good he is going to work today.
Greetings. I am the professor.
So this is just a regular web page.
Welcome
right?
to the Digital Biology Aquarium site.
So I literally hacked out "Welcome to" with HP's Palm Top, and I put that in.
These
So,
are, or should I say were, anomalockers. A large, dominant, invertebrate predator that roamed the Cambrian seas beginning approximately 500 million years ago.
so I could fly around the web
I will
page
bring one back to life for you now.
and
Move your mouse to play with it. Ah. Here it comes now.
and he literally controlled that. That's just, if you guys
Note
know
how
web,
it possesses
that's just a
30
layer.
flaps on each side of its body.
he's an ActiveX program, he
Which
can
was
call
to
it.
be moved in a sinusoidal pattern in order to generate
Okay,
thrust.
well, let it go one more second.
Go ahead. Interact with it using your mouse.
And he knows whether you've interacted it, so that can go back and he can talk about that. Now it's going to wait over here.
And I will be right here to answer your questions.
Okay, so let me talk about a little bit about what happened there, right? He's this ActiveX program, go anywhere on the page. Because of the way with Microsoft things can talk back and forth, he knows everything about the page. He can make the questions come up when he wants. He can do this. Again, he is just a program, right? But the point is, we're trying to now get out of the regular web space and get more into a social space. One of the things, this is the fun thing right here, this guy, and I could put my mouse over it, and this guy's going to play with my mouse, right? So this is the fun thing that everyone wants to touch. On the web, it would be a big button, and you'd see it, and you would ignore the text that would first give you the preamble, and you'd go right to it. With him, we went back to linear storytelling. We didn't bring him up. We held him in our back pocket, and we said, here's the boring speech about anomalocaurids and when they live, and now you get to look. So all of a sudden, we can take the web and make it a little bit more, again, social. And how social is he? Well, if I click on him,
Oh, that tickles.
yep, and I can move him over.
Now why did you move me?
And sure enough, if we left him there long enough, he would start looking up in the air and kind of taking out his wand, and eventually he'd yawn, and eventually he would fall asleep. So we had him answer questions for the HP Palm Top. Here I have him asking questions here, so I can say, well, ask me about the Cambridge period, so I'll hit that. He opens up his book.
The first forms of life were simple single-celled organisms.
Okay, we
They were
don't
the only
care.
life on Earth.
So you might
What you're
recognize
looking
him.
for.
You might recognize him as the MS Agent character that showed the kind of newer 3D paperclip thing. And I was just talking to a VC. He called all this stuff cute, and it was all crap, and all people wanted with the old wizards, in Microsoft, brings up one text and the other. And he was claiming that these guys were a big failure in Windows 2000, and in Office 2000. I said, of course they were. They break every rule. But note what I just did right there. You can't do that too easily, which is I stopped him and he stopped dead, MS Agent, you kind of go hide, and it goes, okay, I will hide now. And there's this big hiding thing like, I want to use Excel, just get out of here. So, they really haven't, they just need some people who know a little bit about presentation there. So let me show you the other things you could do on the site, and this usually fails in a room like this, so we'll try it. And you will give me credit.
So you're saying that basically they just didn't get the social rules right?
Right, I'm using the exact same program. In fact, they have better code than I do. They have the in-house stuff, and and the other thing is that for whatever reason, the search engine just doesn't seem to work. But this is a big issue. Once you have this social character, there's companies out there that want to give it a big backstory, and this is Fred, the taxi driving help agent, and this is so-and-so, and some of them want to ham it up too much, and you kind of have to remember, what's the context? Is the context Excel? Then it's like, hi, what's your problem? Is it you just opened your compact for the first time and it was a consumer model, and you're dealing with a first-time computer person, and they need to go, hi, I'm Sam, I'll be with you. If you don't like me, there's 4 other guys. You can decide which guy you like. But I'm the serious guy. I'm going to explain it all to you. There's the start button. Go check it out and let me know. They're not thinking about the different contexts. So they just have these showy things. And you would imagine for Word and Excel, you'd really want, what do you want? Okay, I got it. Here it is. And almost what I did, open the book, close the book. But they hammed it up a little bit too much, I think. So let me show you something else he'll do, which is say hello. Oh, you heard it.
Hello.
Thank you. So this is a very simple speech recognition system. Very simple. So we actually had it up live on the web. This isn't a big, huge, fat demo. Everyone downloaded this who went to the Palm Top site, and I can say, and I think I still have the Palm Top song in here, so I'll do that song. Sing.
I really like this Palm Top. I really, really do. And if you buy it 'cause of me, you'll really like it too.
So that was a big deal for us because we had, HP is pretty, buttoned down guys. And I said, we can, with the technology we can have about 10 things that he responds to. So you can say which palm top is cheaper. But I would suggest, because of viral marketing, we want kind of nerds and cubes to kind of go, have you seen this new thing? And that goes around, and in doing so, they actually are looking at the palm top too. That's what we were after. I said, we should have about, hold on, at Sachi, I was always like, about maybe half of the things kind of be funny, and in HP, they're like, funny, I'd have to pass that by 6 level. There was a real worry. The song went through, they loved it, it was a big hit. One of the great things is they tested it in HP. Turns out HP is got cubes and is kind of geeky, and way before we even went live, in HP, they're going, did you hear the song? And it was just winging around, and it calmed down the marketing guy to say, okay, what other funny stuff can we do? And let's put in a whole game, slow down. I said, well, horoscopes are good because we can change them and we can get the data and he can talk. Now, note that he's text to speech, which means we can just type things in and he can say them. Doesn't sound great, but over the web it's great because it's very little bandwidth, and we could put them under programmatic control so we can say a whole bunch of things. So this is this character. I mentioned the guy in the background very quickly is also obviously an interactive web character. One of the things we were thinking of doing there is almost like it's projected here, put a little nice piece of wood around, you go through the aquarium, what do you look at? You look at kind of glass with fish on the other side. Well, we wanted to have, we've been talking to the Monterey Aquarium about as you're going through aquarium, all of a sudden you go in one room and it's all in fact fish that don't exist anymore, which is these pre-Cambrian fish, or fish that are too small, or fish that are too big. And of course, you can kind of, I have a really cheap interaction here. I could show you others that we have a lot more interaction with. Well, there he goes. He's kind of getting bored. Well, in that case, we'd have really great UI, maybe this thing you open up and you put food in, and then all of a sudden you see it go in. One of the things we want to do, because it works on the web, and this was to show it kind of works on the web, is students come in, they learn a little bit, they get the big presentation with the real UI, they get a CD and they take this guy home with them because he's artificial life, so you can program him to do different things. During the course of the class, the whole class kind of evolves him and then can come back and show their creatures. So those are other things you can do with creatures too, which is kind of on the artificial life side. I'll show you another thing that works with artificial life too, because my time is short and I want to make sure I show a couple of different things. Any questions? So, best to do it with slides. So we just talked about these two pretty extremes. We talked about kind of interactive characters for avatars and the need to make it social. That social also works to sell stuff, But there's a lot of other web characters, and most of them are in the virtual theater, entertainment type space. So I've done a bit with that, so I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And I might even show some existing sites that are out that I had nothing to do with, just to give you a flavor for things. So sure enough, I just, pretty recently did a project with Maxis, the Electronic Arts Maxis game company. They did this very hot game called The Sims, these kind of walking 3D characters. They wanted faces, and I wrote this face program for them, but they didn't want to do with a lot of other these other companies are doing, which is take a photograph of yourself, put it on. They wanted something very kind of original, different. So I came up with a way of surfing through face space. And when you see a face you like, you say, give me more faces like that. Well, it kind of, or I like these two faces. It kind of marries those two together with this genetic algorithm and makes more faces like that. So let me bring that up. And how they did it, and this is just another, viral marketing is this really big issue. Do people know what viral marketing means here? Okay, I'll mention it's what made ICQ huge. It simply means that someone tells a friend who tells a friend who tells a friend. You don't use traditional marketing. So in ICQ, you use viral marketing because it happens virally. It just kind of takes off. So what you want to do with that wizard character, I want to make him so cute that my friend is going to tell another friend, and the company doesn't do anything. It just kind of takes off on its own. Now, the way ICQ works is you have to know they picked smartly email as the identifier. So when you say, I want to talk to Rebecca Allen at so-and-so, if Rebecca isn't on the system, it shoots an email out to Rebecca saying, Rebecca, your friend Steve tried to get you and you weren't there. Do you want to come on the system? So they built in friends telling friends, really easy. So some of viral marketing is making the explosion happen quickly. And that's how they did it with The Sims. Usually, especially game companies, they don't give anything away for free. This is the first time they said, we won't put this in the program. We'll give this away for free because and we'll give it out months beforehand, more like advertisement. They'll play with it, and they'll be making faces, and when the game comes out, they'll just want to get their creation in. And that's a big thing that's happening. I spend a lot of time, the old style is, we're Disney, we own these characters, we don't want to give them out a lot, because, and the other trick is, don't give them out, because when you click on them, it has a link back to your site, so it isn't, it's not that you want to keep them, they're marketing and advertising for you, and that's one of the big changes on the internet that kind of gets hard to kind of understand, like, well, what do I keep and what don't I keep? What do I give away? And that still hasn't worked out very well. So let me show you The Sims.
Are any of these, or are there any groups that are working on learning, so that you can actually learn and then apply knowledge back into the content?
Yes, and I have the ability to show a system like that. I might just talk through it. So yeah, they're pretty game-like characters. There's 9 of them, right? And I'll click, and we'll get another 9, and they're random. So imagine this, kind of a weird idea. There's a space of every possible head in the world, and the heads are correlated. And what we're doing is we're getting 9 random points in that space. So I don't like anybody, so I'll get 9 other random points. And then let's decide somebody. I don't know, maybe this guy's interesting. So he goes into the center, right? And now, okay, back to all the faces in the world of those 9 random points, we just zoom to this guy, and I have kind of there's kind of a sphere of choices around him, and we picked, 9 heads that are similar to him. And I have this mutation rate here. If I make this higher, I'll click on him again, same head. I've kind of broadened how far I want to move. Now, if I bring it low, they're pretty similar. So what I can do is I can put it kind of in the middle. Note, I claim we all have facial dyslexia. We can't remember more than 3 faces back. But bear with me here. This is 2. Let's bring it a little bit higher. I'll click on it again. So we're starting with this guy. This guy looks like, in The Sims they have families a lot. So let's say this is a good brother for him. So we got a brother now. I want maybe the grandma, the mother of these guys. Oh, okay. This woman has a small nose. I'll go with that. And what we're doing is, if I even go a little bit faster, I'll bring this down a little bit. This one. So from this person in the center, I want to go to this person. So what we're doing is we're surfing through a face space. We're taking itty-bitty steps. So every time we take a step, we have 9 like-minded faces, and we make a choice that way. So this is literally surfing through a space. Again, it's hard to see it, so I think I have a slide. They're kind of algorithmic, yep. So what I did was very rapidly, I took those heads and just brought them in. I didn't do a very good job. But we started with this guy, and you can see how we kind of whizzed around and how there is a kind of a pattern. So that's what you're doing. You're surfing through this space. And I'll show you this, quote, theoretical slide. Same exact faces, but I just put these funny paths on it. Because you can make different kinds of paths. In other words, here's a grandma, here's a biker. You know, wouldn't it be interesting to see what it's like if we walked from a biker to grandma? Do you go from biker to longshoreman to, I don't want to know. But, and in fact, it gets, when you get into classification of people, it gets kind of politically incorrect and kind of racial biases. It's all cultural why we like heads anyway, so you feel that cultural changes. So imagine we started with that guy up here, and we randomly, rather than going right to someone, we kind of just meandered around till we got to him. And then at him, I took a straight line, and went across to this guy. Then I made a very different change, because these are kind of big-jawed guys. And then I kind of went up and got kind of an older grandma, and then even a more genteel woman, and I kind of slid back. So I'm claiming that we're whizzing around the space. This is all kind of theoretical, but I had a ball with this stuff, because the other thing is thousands of people making their face or their mom's face or their fictitious faces from that. And it gets back to the question someone asked about, is it important that it really looks like the person? And what I find is, rather than as technologists and artists spend all the time in trying to figure out how you can automatically get what the person looks like, it's always better to give them a tool and say, you go find your face. So they'll put their biases in. They'll purposely make themselves more heroic or more like Leonardo DiCaprio or whatever. But it's a win-win situation. One is you get them kind of playing, and two, they like where they end up. And they end up in a place that you couldn't figure out the zeitgeist of why they got there. So they're kind of giving that to you. Because this is a parameterized set of faces as opposed to just like taking pictures and putting them in, we have a set of spaces. So if we do some market studies and decide, yeah, this is heroic here, every time somebody picks a face, let's just move a little bit towards heroic, or again, Leonardo DiCaprio. So everyone goes, oh, I really like my face. So you can actually kind of get into that kind of space. The other, throughout this other just kind of weird, so I do a lot of this stuff for companies, like I said, 5 different companies in a row, and then decided, well, maybe I should go back to school and do it a little bit more lengthy. Startups are great because they'll give you money for like a year to do something wild. That's changing now. But then after about a year or two, they kind of go, okay, this is good, and it's what you said it is, but what are we doing with it again? So it's, you leave. I don't know, bye. And sometimes in the academic setting, it's a little bit slower and steadier. But one of the things I like is to do this kind of for practical reasons, and market research and scientific. But for pure art, every once in a while, it's really nice because you could make this major assumption that could be wrong. So one of the things, I'm working with a musician on this, because the most fascinating thing to me is people do those 9x9 faces. Yep, this is, everything I'm showing you is just real stuff out there. And now these are 3D, right? And you put them in the product. People will find a face, and these are pretty bad here. And they'll get really, well, that one's like kind of Nixon with Agnew in it. That's great. I like that face. And then they'll click on it, and they'll get in the center, and they'll usually get jazzed by the other faces. And I'm really interested in why that is. What kind of social context for them, just like with music in a way, kind of works. And in fact, this is very much like music in that music is tonal space, and you're making paths through tonal space. And you like the way those kind of intervals sound, or key points sound in tonal space, usually for cultural reasons, non-Western, Western. So can you actually make music with faces? Can you kind of make a composition by moving through this space? All the friends I mentioned this to think I'm kind of crazy. I guess I've just been working with faces too long because it just makes a lot of sense to me, or a dance piece with it. So one other thing, I'm working with a musician to try and to do that. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways, but imagine kind of a row of 10 monitors. So there's one monitor over there, and imagine just a bunch over, and there's a head on every face. And just as an installation piece, there's somebody can get on one of them and kind of play with this, and someone can get all the way on the other one and play with it. And what they're really doing is they're holding on ends of a jump rope, and they're going back and forth, and the face is in between. Now, one of the problems is that I thought, oh, this is all great, and I had like 10 ideas for artwork, and it turns out I'm realizing this face dyslexia thing is pretty significant. That a lot of times people are going, I don't notice that these faces have anything to do with each other. And if you're going, well, if I give them to you, oh, then I see it. So you can do it in animation, but it's turns out what we're doing instead is just taking this system and making it into a development. So it's a dev kit, so this is slightly different than the Maxis, to try and have a better understanding of how big a jump is too much, and it's not just morphing faces. It has to be something more interesting than that. I wanted to. I'm going to run onto the web and show something that isn't mine, but I think we'll try and put this stuff in context.
But is that based on your website?
Yes, yes, and actually everything I'm showing there's a link to. There's a link to it on my website, even if it's not mine. So we talked about community, we talked about marketing, we talked about kind of gaming a little bit, but now I want to talk about kind of more traditional storytelling, theater, entertainment, and I'm going to I just think this is the funniest thing ever. So. You guys might not like it as much as I do. But this is, Pulse is a 3D plugin, pretty good one. It's getting more use. And a company called Protozoa makes this dot comics, and they know a lot about characters. They have a lot of puppeteers. They've been doing it for years in the high end. Yes. Yeah. And they, and what I'm telling you with his and some of the other companies, it was really looking good for a while. With this last crash, they've been kind of getting beat up. So this dot comics promised a comic a day, and the site hasn't changed in a long time. So, but there's so much stuff here. So I like the hotel tapes. So this is, maybe I'll show one first and talk about it later. So this is Bill Gates, right? I can even move him around because he's 3D. No, I can't. So let's see, what is one of my favorites is. So this is Bill Gates in a hotel, bored stiff. He wants pizza like the rest of us. He's calling Domino's. Bill orders a pizza. Quick download, and it starts. There was the download. You should start talking real soon. Okay. Oh, that's right. User interface. I hate this one. There's a play button all the way over here. I always complain about the user interface. So here we go.
Hey, hello, is this Domino's? Yes, okay, I'd like one extra large pizza with pineapple. Have pineapple. How much extra would it be? No, I do understand. How much extra would it be for you to go to the store, buy some pineapple, and throw it on my pizza? Well, actually, I do have that much money. I didn't ask if it was your store's policy. I asked how much would it be. So if the price was in your computer, this would be different. I see. Hold, please.
Calling the money guys.
This is Bill. Buy up all the pineapple commodities you can. Then buy Domino's, all of it, whatever the price. I don't care where the money comes from. Leverage the death ray satellites if you have to. Just do it now. It's more like it.
Now he calls up his computer center, some poor IT guy.
This is Bill. Upgrade the online software for Domino's. About 15 seconds ago, as if it were any of your business, you nosy Nancy. Excellent. Domino's, it's me again. How much would it be for you to go to the store, buy some pineapple, and throw it on my pizza? Look again, bottom feeder.
Okay.
You damn Skippy, it's on your computer now. Be here in 30 minutes with my pineapple pizza, or I'll send a pack of angry crack-smoking midgets over there to go to work on you with a pair of pliers and a blowtorch.
Okay, so
Oh,
that's...
one more thing, I will need some napkins.
Okay, so hopefully that's the end. That was pretty long, right? So there's 3D and all this other kind of stuff. This is the hotel tapes. Of the hotel tapes, there's like 7 or 8 of them. And then there's, in Trillionaire, there's just as many. So these are commonly known as webisodes. They have them with Flash too. There's 100 of these Bill guys. One of the things, let me get rid of that one. One of the things that, why this era is exploding characters on the internet is because, this company, and I'm being metaphorical, I don't know exactly what Comic wants. I know this Mondo Media, they would love to be a PDI and a Pixar, right? It's kind of, and PDI and Pixar and the people making kind of big high-end movies and syndication, all that kind of stuff. Well, they started by making commercials, but they basically want to move in that direction. Well, it's a lot cheaper and easier to do that on the web. And what are they doing? They're just making story, getting it up there, hoping one hits. They got to keep the economy of scale down. They model one character, which is this guy. They put a quick background in him, and then everything is one comedian usually. So one comedian writes it, and it's his voice talent. So and a lot of them always do, like movie reviews, because they always want to go, what are we going to do next? So they always want to do something current. So what happens is you get a comedian, who owns the Bill Gates from Hell series. He gets in there, thinks of something. 2 days later, he's in a studio. He's doing all the voiceover. Voiceover's done. That's almost all this guy is. You get a quick animator who's taking stuff that's already around anyway, libraries, and he's doing a little bit of moving hands. Wham! In usually 4 days, they have that episode done. And it's usually like it literally can do it in 3 people or less. The other nice thing is every move is downloaded. So after you've seen 3 of these, there's almost nothing to download except for that kind of voice and some simple little stuff. So you're going to see a lot of character-based stuff. Because the thing that's a little trickier is, let's walk around the town and look at new 3D objects that we've never seen before, because that all has to cash in. This is all about the character, which is almost all in the voice. And on .comics, there's about 20 of them. And they're doing this on Flash, too. Same thing. They have kind of pieces. So you're going to see a lot of kind of webisodic, more character-based stuff than other stuff, just because of the economies of scale. Again, one creator is kind of the big thing about it, basically doing kind of a voice session. The companies are struggling, and the reason they're struggling is because it was kind of the Warner Brothers site and Entertaindom and these portal sites that were buying this as syndication. They would never give the rights away. You only get it syndicated and they're doing it almost not making money, just very much, because their thing is, if we just get one South Park, then there'll be a movie from it. And that's what they're really kind of, artists and filmmakers who figured that this might be a better venture. So what they really want, they couldn't give a crap about all this website and business. All they want is one of theirs to hit. They're big. They get to make a movie. So it's I don't want to say, I'm oversimplifying here, but you do see that way in that the web is taking people who are kind of creative and want to go to an outlet and are struggling to do that on TV and film, and give them the ability to do that kind of cheaply, just like Betacams and DV are doing too. So, how are we doing on time?
We could probably go about 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
But if people have questions too, since you're on the wealth of information.
Okay.
I know you didn't cover everything you wanted because
I think so. Let me take just. Yeah, I think that actually is too much. Let me describe that quickly. So we did the Palm Top site, which is the wizard showing a product. So what we got is the Barker, You know, if you think of it traditionally, we have a barker who says, hey, come here. Then, you know, you go over to him and he shows you he's got soap, better soap, here's the rug. You know, sure enough, he can give these demos. I didn't exactly show the HP demos, but he gives them. And then, want to see another demo? Because, and what I have is these 8 simple questions like, well, which palm tablet's cheaper? This one is, you know, and what he really needs is this huge, I'm giving you the marketing story, but it's similar in other spaces. What he needs is a bit of a brain, because that's the last thing that sales guy would do, and again, I'm taking from the Saatchi perspective, is, okay, you wooed him, you gave him the entertainment, you gave him the spiel, now you got to bring him in with the questions. So what he needs is a little bit of brain, and they have these natural language processing systems out there. I'm going to just, as we talk, I'll jam on one with the web. And we worked with this one. I really like them. I clicked on some button. So he has a little bit of brain, so you could ask him questions. Although it turns out it's not very easy to do, and people are struggling to do it. So I could hit some funny keys, and this particular character would come up as my wizard, because at Saatchi, we work with this company, and I noticed they still left these back-end controls to bring it, but because it might take a while, I'm just going to talk to you this way. Hello, I'm Nicole. I'm a virtual representative. What's your name? Steve. Hi, Steve. What can I do? It's like, and then I'll just kind of ignore and say, where are you from? She literally has to go up on the server and bring that down, and for some reason we're stalling. Here you go. I was created in-house with the content developers at Native Minds. So now I'll say, where is that? Yes, right? Now I spelled it wrong, and it has a spell checker, so that's not an issue usually. I don't know where that is. Okay, well, I found it. So let me just kind of, so let's try this other thing. How much is your, oh man, what's wrong with me today? I think I am mush after the trip. How much is your product? See why I'm into voice? Because I can't type. And we'll just see if I could, I used to know the tricks to get the really good responses, and they've changed it a bit, so let's see what she says. And she goes right to her products, so that's a, you know, okay, it's not a real web character, but she's able to do that. The cost of ours is, oh, they won't even tell you anymore. So I used to say, how much is the product? She'd answer back how much it is, and then I'd say, wow, that's a lot. And then she would say, well, what do you think is a good price? And then I would say what it is. So note what's happening, and this is back to the agent stuff. And if they didn't jack up their prices so much, HP would have used it for their next piece, which was, this was going to be the brain of the wizard. And you could kind of, in fact, they decided how much to make their product based on their actual product. I think it's the first time in history the very product decided the price. Because what happened is, everything I say is being recorded. And that's kind of the privacy, security, other issues. And you think, and the salespeople do this all the time, you think you're talking to, you know, it's answering your questions, but very rapidly it'll swap it around. So, and you don't realize it, you're just there going, you know, and all of a sudden it's getting all this information. In fact, during the heady days of the beginning of the internet, we would get a lot of people coming to Saatchi for our marketing ability, and they'd say, you know, we have this product, it's a weird one. We don't even know what category of thing it is. We don't know how much it should cost. And we don't know what it's called. You got to just figure all that out for us. So sometimes we'd say, hey, we got this wizard thing. Put Nora Media in it, and you want to do. And you could just ask questions all the time. And it's a great, you'll get thousands of people. You'll get all the data, and you'll get marketing research. You can decide how expensive it is. And it does all that kind of stuff. To do it, there's huge stuff in the background here, and this is kind of a little bit off target, but when you're talking about the brains of a character, you're talking about it, so there's a lot of these systems, they all suck. This is the only one that I thought was okay. Because they tend to say, almost what happened here, so you're in a bar and you say something and say, could you say that louder? And it's like, it's so confused. And it's saying, well, say that in a different way. And you get so annoyed that the reality is broken that you thought, oh, I'm talking to a bartender here. This one's a little better. Usually it kind of says, gee whiz, I don't know that. I'm going to ask the bot master that question. I saved it. I'll ask the bot master. If he thinks I should know it, I'll tell you. And at least, they put some perspective on this. The other thing this program does really good is natural language processing. And I was trying to do it there, which is I say, where are you from? So it has to say you. That's me. Okay. So Natalie equals you. Okay, I'll remember that. So next time. And then I say, I'm from this place. They go, well, where is that place? Now it's got to keep two wheres around, So all of a sudden this is all called pronoun substitution, or just, it needs a bit of a memory to say, okay, there's, in context, if it's where is there, it could be me or it could be this other place. And she can juggle it pretty good, all just to make it sound very fluid when she talks. So there's a couple of things that this program does. One is, it just has this big algorithm and it's got to just answer you correctly. Right? It basically says, what phone number is the phone number I can call? It's got to go look that up. It's got to say it in a reasonable way. It's got to do the pronoun substitution. And then, to make it really worthwhile, it's got to own dialogue. So it's got to be pushing you. You sure you don't want to look at the fast cars? So besides the normal stuff, and then the other thing is you tangent off with it. You say, well, can we go over there? Or, God, you have pretty hair. So for a while, you kind of try and get social with Natalie. And she's got to follow that, do that. Well, at some point, she's got to wing back and kind of go, do you want to go look at cars? And everyone does that in these awful stultified ways. And this system does it a little bit better. So I think I'm going to end. Yeah. Yes, it's just over and over again. When you make the bot systems, the very first thing you have to do is figure out how you're going to deal with that. Because it's annoying because you want to make this backstory of how you act, but you have to put like in every single counter so it's like, oh God, I didn't realize I was going to have to write a bad bar simulator because every idiot's going to come up to me and tell me things, and I'm going to have to seem still smart and answer back. These are clients. I got to quickly get. I just don't talk about that. It is one way to go. Or my husband wouldn't like that. There's ways to kind of swing your back. But yet you want to, there's a reason to be a little bit provocative. So I didn't. So one of the things, going back to the avatar space. With Purple Tears, I gave a talk at USC about some of the things that are going on there, and it's too much to get into now. But those Purple Tears is actually making very personal spaces that people really respond to. She meets people in there, and she literally has relationships. I don't ask whether it's telephone sex or physical or anything like that, but she claims she really falls in love with people. Well, on the internet, everything that kind of burns bright burns fast, and it kind of ends. And sure enough, she's right there with these people, and there was this one guy who wouldn't leave her alone, and everywhere she went, she'd follow him. So she made a space, with this bird cage, just showing how she was locked in. Actually, it's just right here, so I might as well bring it up while we talk. I hope it's that button.
Do you think her husband knows all this is going on?
I don't even, I only know Purple Tears. There's Pam, who she really is somewhere, wherever, and I simply don't know that person. So it's dark, but we're falling, see these bars? We're falling into this kind of bird cage, and right out of reach are these keys, and she wants to make you feel the way she feels with this guy stalking her everywhere. So I'll kind of back out a little bit. So there's the bird cage, and there's these keys going around. And she doesn't know much about 3D at all, so it's very primitive. And sure enough, even with it, she's trying to yearn to break free. Knowing Purple Tears, she still does that in kind of a little flirtatious way. So she's always kind of there, Remember, she had the line about men will just have to understand about her and cats, or whatever that was. So let me just point up and see there's something holding up this bird cage, and sure enough, that's her that's representing kind of her demon lover in this case. Now this guy, for all we know, is that guy next to her, right, who dissed her or whatever, and he's got to deal with this damn space all the time. And there's other spaces like this. I'll bring up one as I just end this part. But one of the really neat things that's going on here is these are just regular folks. She hardly knows 3D, but what she's doing is getting back to kind of the email and the communication. She's expressing herself through these systems. And what these kind of regular folk are doing, they kind of blew us away, us original creators who did it for MTV and ABC and said, oh, this is worthless, it's not working commercially, is they live in this place, they have relationships. Based on those relationships, they make the physical space, the bricks and mortar of the space that they actually live in, which is pretty unusual. So this one is, they get together for Christmas and holidays. And so this is Christmas a couple years ago, and sure enough, it's got a shepherd with some sheep heads, and here's a donkey, and here's, what do you know, Purple Tears is Mary. I was going to ask her about that. A little drummer boy and these three kings. So when they did this for real, I mean, that particular day, they dressed up their avatars, and these were not polygon models as they are now. They were moving avatars, so they were doing Christmas carols. A lot of small towns, they do exactly that. They have living Christmas carols. They all get up there, they go to a local church, and they do it. The difference here is they were able to immortalize them, literally freeze themselves as statues in their physical space. So if you're interested in this, there's a longer talk on it. But the main point is this idea of expression systems, and it gets back to when Kodak says, "Oh, if you can only make it look exactly like it really is, that's what you need." And I'm saying, no, it's a kind of what's, you know, as an animator, entertainer, and not so much a technologist, I know it's from here, not what the camera sees. It's not video conferencing. It's getting the emotion out. And Purple Tears is kind of able to do that. And what this community is doing now, every day in On Live, I think we'll all be doing in 10 and 20 years, which is we'll be using art systems, so a system an artist makes, but they leave it open for interactively. And you go into it and you basically express yourself in it. So you're sharing kind of the artwork. Part of it is the artist who made it, part of it is you. A great example of that is what we did for The Sims, right? Going back to that, every single product that ever came out of EA before that, an artist made every single face, and you got that one. This is the first time, and we worked with an artist, instead of making an exact faces, we made this face system, and then people are trading their faces. So that's what this slide is kind of getting at, and I typically am really hot on the idea of this interactive art expression systems, that artists, writers, musicians, we all know how to express ourselves with media, but we're professionals and we got to use professional tools. Can we get our talent can we bake it into the sliders of some system? Because typically the audience only watches, reads, and hears what we do. But can we get that talent into the tool and make the tool easy to use? You know, you've used Premiere and Photoshop. These are not easy tools. In 3D, how can you make them easy? That's what we tried to do in the Sims, is kind of make it easy to find heads. So can the non-professionals express themselves? So right now we're all expressing ourselves with email, but in the future, can we express ourselves with a dance sequence? Can we make a better kind of, I hate you, you didn't call me yesterday, greeting card, that way than this way? So so this is kind of, a lot of, so you got a tour now of some of the things I'm interested in, but one of the places the tour has led me, at least, is that this is starting to look more real to me, that as I get into social stuff, as an artist, again, remember back in the days when Rebecca and I were at New York Tech, we owned every single thing we did, and as you get more into not thinking about characters as their hair and their head, but what's inside, then it naturally says as well, I can't own all of what's inside. Some of the program's going to own it, and even better, other people, just regular folks who I don't know, are going to take it and they're going to collaborate with me. So more and more we're doing this, and I think The Sims, when I walked in there there was no way they were going to take my tool and give it out on the web free. They just didn't believe in that. Just so happens that this massively multiplayer games are going nuts. EA had very little in there and just got this big AOL, EA.com AOL deal, and they're going, the web, that's where we are, you know. So they spent some time saying, okay, how do you do this thing? And sure enough, the next Sims is going to be more on the web. So I think, you know, and we were at a conference that discussed some of this, and you know, it's pretty, the game companies are pretty control mongers. They don't want to give stuff away, as is true of Hollywood and musicians. But, you know, where this is always going to lead, in my opinion, is copyright and ownership is really going to be a lot different, you know, when you're my age, which is kind of happening now already. People are taking songs and mixing it and things like that. So why don't I stop there and kind of open it up to any questions? Yeah.
Is this on? Oh, that's scary. Okay, so granted these tools are kind of early on, they have a lot way to go before you actually feel that you're talking with a person or some kind of, you know, form of intelligence rather than, you know, a little bit of that baked into this, you know, computer graphics thing. Mm-hmm. How are you guys avoiding this kind of a syndrome of calling to, you know, one of the tech support lines, and you ask a question, they say, well, I don't know, let me check this, and this, and you go on for half an hour, and then you're like, okay, can I talk to like a person or someone who actually knows what they're doing? So there's
the bad side of this, but you're bringing up a lot of good points. One is owning that whole leash. Forgot we're on tape, Purple Tears. I know you don't have virtual sex. I know you're a good person. I always forget that they run on the thing and then they watch me, and then I got to go back online and say, hi, I use the control key and I talk to them, and then I pick up the control key and then I say things and I forget that they then watch that. It's okay. It's just all for entertainment reasons. Okay, so the answer to your, I just thought of that in my mind. A faux pas, they call that. Well, one thing that talks about the, one of the things we were trying to convince HP was the full circle identity leech. So just to do that one, you're walking through Office Max, and sure enough, on screen is the wizard. There's the Barker. Hey, come on, look at stuff. So he gets you over to the computer. He does his dance and stuff. You buy the computer. The day you open it up, the wizard comes out again and says, can I help you with anything? He'll know some things, but not everything. And our big story was, when the wizard has gotten as far as he can with you, and you're still like unsure of things, the modem gets called, and out of that same wizard comes the voice of a real tech support person. So that's this thing I claim with the leash is it could be a dynamic leash. So here you are with this thing that's completely kind of, we wrote code, it's generated, we don't know what it's doing. And at some point the leash gets pulled tight because you make the phone call, and all of a sudden out of that same branded, it's not you use the guy with the mohair, but your mom uses Quiet Sal, and through Quiet Sal's voice, who's very patient and stuff, comes, you know, a real salesperson, customer support person. Now, I just mentioned that's really big and very interesting in the market, because unlike most of this .com stuff that wasn't actually solving problems, these guys have a huge problem. Every time they have to pick up the phone, it's this much money. Every time you use the online help, it's no money. And they don't have anything in between, right? So this thing does both. It makes the online help seem a little bit better, but then can get you to the telephone call. And one of the things about the telephone call is they got to start you from scratch. If it's connected to the online help and it's done in a pretty organized way, and they can keep the history of that, they don't have to do that. Who are you? I know you've tried things, but you might be an idiot. I don't want to hear anything you say. Turn the computer, you know, and they always take you to square one. They have to do that. So I think hopefully that answers your question of that. I think you implied the negative in there too, which was, I don't want to talk to web, you know, it's just like, you know, hit button for, yes, I am your friend Sal. Yeah. Can you help me? I am your friend Sal. And I don't know what to say about that. And I was interested in some of the companies doing this stuff, and they were really, there was more money in the telephone help side of it than the embodied side. Because right now, again, everything's based on money and need. The need is that every single airline you call up and stuff has that hit one for this, and everyone hates that. So they're trying to put those intelligent agents in that way. And I don't know whether they're going to be as just as annoying. And this is the standard technologist cop-out. It's like, I only build the bombs. You can use them for good and you can use it for bad. Right. And I think that's a real problem in that we're going to see a lot of really bad systems.
I think basically what I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, I guess, is...
Could you use the mic so it goes...
It's so weird. I guess kind of being devil's advocate here is that there's kind of two sides to this. You have the consumer side and then the company trying to sell things. Right. And Grant, I don't know a lot of consumers that really like the barkers and really like people trying to sell them things. So that's one side. On the other hand, for a company, it's a really good thing if you can get some guy just churning out sales. But as far as the little Microsoft help guy, right. How many layers is this creating between the user and what they want to get? And granted, it's going to get there one of these days, but...
And the trouble is doing the character stuff and the movement and the singing the cute song and doing the whoop bow that makes people laugh and stuff is the easy part. It's actually having them get the right information that's lagging way behind. So I agree with all that. There's another big user interface problem that came up, which is, again, you didn't see it with the Palm Top, but you did see it with he is going, here's the Palm Top. And when he says that, the Palm Top, which is 3D, it's actually Flash, flips around and shows the back side of it. So for the first time we're dealing with this thing, it's like, wait a minute, everything is alive and moves. So what is the role of the social agent? Is he just the barker? I'm just going to introduce you to the Palm Top. Palm Top, do your thing, which is unusual. In the old days, he had to be it. So it does get weird when you, from thinking of it traditionally like you are, how much control you can have, because for the first time of the day, I'll go back to the guy with the mop. Now the mop can talk. So it's now all of a sudden roles, it's not really obvious. Well, what does the mop do and what does so from a design standpoint, we're still kind of working that out a bit. Yeah, and I promised I would write a talk on the evils of privacy of my years at the marketing companies, not necessarily Saatchi. I keep forgetting I'm on camera. They were a good company. But it is pretty scary that you can go talk to that native minds person and not necessarily native minds, and they can spin you into thinking. They literally record everything. So they're only doing it to make the program better and see what questions aren't answered. But everyone, data, is where it's at. I would always try and explain to people who like building a service for kind of a web-based company or a portal. Oh, we can do this, and we have this back-end program that makes this better. It's like, wait, the back-end program, does that get a lot of data? They'll be more interested in that than anything else because, so we've swung. With this talk in general, there's the entertainment side and the community side is just as interesting. We're swinging a little more towards the business side. That's fine, but I just want to make that point. I forgot what I was going to say. Yes, businesses. You don't realize this from kind of coming out of it new and from a technology side. They have no idea who their consumers are. They have to do these really awful. We'll get your pizza. They bring in, kids who just want the pizza or whatever, and they ask them, what do you think of Tide? They just don't know anything about their products. So this social stuff means, and they have a name for it, mass customization, and which means, so I'll give you that speech really quick, because anytime I want to do anything cool at Saatchi, I gave the speech and they let me do it, which is, in the old days, the guy with the suitcase used to come to the farm, open his thing and says, how many widgets are you going to buy? And he knew everything about it. It was a very personal situation. And that lasted for a long time. At some point, we went to a little bit more advertising. We went to kind of TV and radio, broadcast. One message to everybody, no customization anymore. The web did more of that. And my whole story at Saatchi was, with my social stuff, we're going to change all that. We're going to get back to your personal salesperson opening up. And better yet, you don't even have to pay them because that's the mass part. We can control the customization, from far away in an organized way. We send it out, and we'll just have thousands of people, and we'll just be raking in the data of who wants what. So in the chain of things, one of the things I had the wizard also do is, how do you like your product? Well, last time you bought 6 for the new, are they artists? Because I could just order the same systems. So some of the other things is they were going to get the hopefully the niceness of what salesmen bring to the table, which is they kind of know. I mean, I've managed a lot of artists, and I always have to go through that hell of, we got 3 people starting next Tuesday, what kind of workstation we buy them? It's like, whatever we bought them last time. So it's nice that I could have a website that has that memory, and I say, whatever bought them last time, but the same price, and just, don't get me the really old one, because everything went down now. So just, and I could give some story, and they can figure it out. So that's happening, too. Any other questions? I'd also say, get on and talk to Purple Tears and those people yourself. They do. You get in trouble. Yeah, explain how they made me. Oh God, I really didn't bring up the telephone sex thing at all. I didn't.
Just a quick sort of reality question here. In the companies that you started up in, what positions? What was your title usually?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a weird bird, as a lot of people from New York Tech were, which I can put on the art hat and I can put on the technology hat. But I usually am a creative director, which means kind of like the idea guy, but I got a staff and I got to manage them. So it's both a management hat and a creative direction hat. If you look at my titles, they've been director of development, because some of the people are just web programmers. And one of the things that's happened is the dividing line between artist and programmer is starting to slide, and the web's doing a lot of that. Like my artists, they did web stuff, all the time. It was at Saatchi, I had people just making banners. They weren't going to take the banners and give it to a web person to put up. They were going to use Dreamweaver or whatever. So. That's right, and with 3D it gets pretty technical too. So usually there's artists, and that's the issue. There are people who are both, sometimes okay at both, so they can script and they can do a little bit of art. Then you have the really good artists who, you're going to close them up. They're only going to get stuff out. You're going to baby them a little bit, and the same thing on the technology side. So there really is. And usually there's I'm getting less and less interested in the artist who's just completely an artist. They have to be really, really strong, Where I change it is a conceptual artist, because, just someone who's kind of, is drawing on paper ideas. That's okay, but as you get closer to the production, I'm doing less of that. A lot of times I'm dealing with groups of, like a game company. So there's like game companies, which are very much like software companies, web companies, which can go either way, and then kind of advertising is kind of almost more on the media side, and there's a little bit of differences with them. And a lot of them have to do, just from a practical thing, the thing that always drives me crazy is producer, and they used to call a producer at the web companies an account manager if they came up from that, and then a project manager. So software companies have project managers, and web companies have producers. So what that means is someone's got to, not me, I'm the idea guy, I'll do a little bit, but someone has got to make sure that everything's getting done, and you either give that person a really big hat and they get some ownership, or you don't. And I noticed that is something that kind of changes back and forth. But usually there are groups of, 3 artists, 3 programmers. Usually groups over 6, things start falling apart and you start making different groups. Almost every company I've been in, because it's technology-wise, and it grows to at least 20 quote artists, I always split it into 3 groups at some point. I always have this development group, which is the guys who can kind of keep up with me, and they're stars, and we're gonna do the newest, weirdest thing. We're gonna do the palm top first, and then when somebody else buys it, it goes to the production group. They're not necessarily bad, but they got, I sometimes quote, a good hand. They get the work done, and the clock is on them, right? There's the timer, it's got to be done for budget, on time. The development people, they don't have that as much. And then the third group is I've actually been starting to put kind of an outside production and thinking of the producers separately, and they can deal with separate projects and kind of come in and out. And there's a lot of transfer that happens in that the development group gives things off. So we did the HP Palm Top. They wanted it again. My development group didn't do it. We wanted to take the native mind stuff and make it better. But hey, we didn't make money on the Palm Top because we hardly knew what we were doing. So now we're going to make money by doing it again and again and again, on time, on budget. We got Macromedia as a client because of some of the work we did. And for those guys, even though they're pretty innovative, they're a very innovative company. They wanted to get things out fast, and they didn't have the HP budget, so we were putting them more in the production sense. So you do have to kind of play all those kinds of games. I'm not sure if that was the question you were answering.
Okay, I think we're, any one last question, or do we let them go? Poor guys always have to go on the time.
Okay. So everything's up on the website if you're interested to look at it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay.